Now let's make those hearts do something useful. We'll lose a heart instead of dying, so we'll make the last heart disappear when we lose a life. Let's go and edit our player script. We want to go and find our die function, which is here, die. Let's rename this die function to lose a life. Okay, so in our lose a life function, we want to make the last heart in the list go invisible, and then we'll subtract a life from the amount of lives, so we'll lose a life. So first we will make the last heart invisible. If we go to looks, we can use the set visibility of myself block to do that, and we'll do that here after we disable the physics on the player. And we're not setting the visibility of myself, we're setting the visibility of the last heart in that list of hearts. Now, how are we going to find the last heart in the list of hearts? Well, let's say we have 4 lives. We want to find the 4th heart in that list. So blocks for dealing with lists are in operators under the lists subheading. And what we can do is we can use this block in list get number. So this will find the item at a number position in the list. So let's say your list has 10 items. You could get the first item or the 10th item. In our case, we want to grab the heart number that correlates with the number of lives we have. So if we have 4 hearts, we want to get the 4th heart. If we only have 2 hearts, then we want to get the 2nd heart. So we'll drag that into where myself was. And the list that we're looking through is our list of hearts. In list of hearts, get number. And the number is going to be the number of lives that we have. So we'll go to variables and grab number lives. And then we want to make sure we update the number of lives by subtracting 1 from our lives. So we'll go to variables and we'll grab set number lives, and we will use our plus block, change that to minus, and we want to say lives minus 1. Now let's test that out and see how that looks. So if I walk up to that spike, I lose a life, and then it says game over. Now let's get rid of that whole game over thing. If we go back to our lose a life function, instead of saying after 3 seconds when we lose a life, go to the last level, which is our game over screen. Instead of just doing that when we lose a life, we should do it only if we have no lives left. So we need an if block from control flow, and we'll put this after 3 seconds go to last level inside the if block, and the if block will check if number of lives is equal to or less than 0. So we'll go to operators, grab an equals block, and change that to equal to or less than. It might be possible to have a negative amount of lives, and we want to say if lives is less than or equal to 0. That means we have no lives left. Now let's test that out. So we lose a life, but then our player stays invisible. What we want to do is check if we still have lives, and if we do, then we want to respawn the player. So let's go and add that in. So we want to go and find that lose a life function, and in here we're checking if they have no lives left, and we're making them go to the game over. But what we can do is update this if to an if else, and if they don't have less than or equal to 0 lives, so if they still have some lives, we will make them respawn after 1 second. So let's go to control flow and grab after 1000 milliseconds, and we will set alive to true, and we will set physics back to being enabled, and we will set the visibility of the player to true. From looks, set visibility of myself to true. And lastly, we want to make sure that when we're losing a life, that we're actually alive. So we don't want to keep losing lives. Let's say I landed on a spike and I've lost a life, but then I keep losing lives because I'm still touching that spike. We want to prevent that from happening. So we use our block, if block from control flow inside our lose a life function to make sure that we are alive. So when we lose a life, if we're alive, then we'll go and lose lives. So we want to know if alive equals true. So we use an equals block from operators. Then from variables, we'll grab true, false, alive. And then from operators, we can grab a true block in there. Okay, let's test that out now and see if we can get respawning. Nice. Now we still have a problem here. If I land on top of a spike, I'll keep respawning on top of the spike and I won't get a chance to leave, which is a bit unfair. So what we might do is have a temporary undamageable state after I've respawned. Now, the way that a lot of games do this is they'll flash the player or they'll make them a little bit faded out. So we'll do that. We'll go to our lose a life function in here, and we're respawning in here. What we're going to do is set the alpha of the player. So if we go to looks and grab set alpha of myself, let's set it to 0.4 so they're quite faded out. Still visible but faded out. And then over about a second we'll have them flash faded and semi-faded. So to flash we'll use our time delay block from control flow after 100 milliseconds have passed. Let's make this 200 milliseconds. And then we'll set the alpha to 0.8. And then after another 200 milliseconds inside there, set the alpha to 0.4 again. And then another 200 milliseconds, alpha to 0.8. And another 200 milliseconds, 0.4. So it'll be flash, 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 flash. And then finally, let's set it to alpha to 1. And we'll use the alpha of the player. We'll check what the alpha of the player is. And if they don't have an alpha of 1, then we won't allow them to be damaged. So when we go to lose a life, we're going to check if we're alive, and we're also going to check if alpha equals 1. So we'll go to operators and grab an AND block and put this alive equals true inside one part of the AND block. Connect the AND block to that if. And in here, we want to know if alpha of myself equals 1. Because if we're flashing, alpha won't be 1, so we won't get damaged. Let's test that out now. Here we go. That should give us just enough time to escape out of danger. Nice.